Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the HMH International Content Cares YouTube channel. I'm really glad you guys have joined us today. If you haven't already subscribed, please make sure that you do that. So I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about a presentation that I just did with a group of teachers in Mexico. And we were talking about virtual instruction. And it was a really interesting, engaging conversation that we were having around how to engage our students in that virtual instruction. And I asked them to just start putting some comments into the chat box. And one of the common themes that kept coming up was teachers were wanting to know a little bit more about how to perform icebreakers with their students in a virtual environment. And so I've invited my colleague on with me today, Mohammed. And Mohammed, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Hey, Jason, thank you for having me on. And we are
Yeah.
super grateful for the work that you do with teachers globally, more specifically with the guys in LATAM. I know they're super grateful for everything that you do for them. So I'm Mohammed Gina. I work closely with Jason. We support schools. I'm from South Africa. I'm a math teacher by profession, and by a bit of luck and a bit of strategy, I work at Houghton Mifflin, supporting teachers in a wide variety of different roles and forms. So I'm grateful to be here today.
Yeah, Mohammed. So thanks for joining us. And the reason I called you today is because I know that you and I both have a pretty extensive background in teaching, and also with the work that we do, we get to talk to a lot of educators, and so we're able to take a lot of ideas from what we see in classrooms. So, do you have any ideas around what we can do for icebreakers?
I think it's a really, really valid question. And as teachers begin to transition from traditional classrooms to virtual ones, then potentially back to traditional ones as well, they're starting to find that what worked for them in a traditional space might not work in front of a computer screen. Right? We know that from presenting virtually ourselves as well. Can understand the importance of having a virtual icebreaker. Okay, you've got 30 kids behind a screen. You want to get them engaged as quick as possible, right? So you can dive into your lesson. So of course I do, and I've made some notes, and feel free to jump in as we go along. But the first one that I want to talk about is really starting to get kids to think personally about themselves, and helping them to be willing enough to share that out with the rest of their class and their audience in this new in many different ways. I'm inviting my class into my home, right? So how do I find a way to make that work? Now, one of the things that I see working really well with my kids and the teachers that I work with is getting kids to create personal storyboards. Now, this could be around any topic that you'd like them to create. It could be about themselves. They could be at an international school. It could be about their home country, about maybe the type of food they like, maybe about some of the experiences. One of the things that I thought about was potentially in at the science class, you could be talking to the kids about seasons, and you could ask the kids to create a storyboard around what type of clothes they'd wear in a different season, right? What you can do with that is you can get the kids to share that up on screen. It's a less formal way of getting the kids to talk about themselves and share, right? A really cool thing that can happen from there now is kids can watch and learn and see their friends and their peers doing it. It really breaks the ice for them really
Yeah.
quickly. So that
And
was
Mohammed, one of the things that I like about that is because one of the other things that came up as we were having that conversation was teachers wanting students to get to know each other in the virtual
yeah.
environment. And that's going to be difficult, right? If we're not face to face, how do we get students to know each other? So you're sort of like we say, killing two birds with one stone, right? You're getting them to participate, breaking the ice, and you're getting the students to know each other a little bit better too.
Yep, and I see
Yeah.
that working really well. And that leads me on to the next one quite nicely, actually. What I can do as the teacher now is I can take those virtual storyboards, and using a free online application called Kahoot, I can create a quick quiz. So after my students have shared all about themselves, we can create questions and ask their peers these. Now I can be quite strategic about this because I can start introducing topics or content that I really want to talk about, but from their material, right? So you can
Hmm.
immediately see how you can use that Kahoot quiz in lessons as a follow-up. So one, again, you're using it as a wonderful engagement piece and an icebreaker. But two, which I really, really like, You're starting them to introduce them to content. And don't be afraid to even start inserting some like baseline assessment pieces in there, as well as some formative assessment. It gives you great insight to where your kids are. And as you can see with the Kahoot quiz, it's really simple and you get data in a quick and easy way, right? So that's a really nice tool to be able to use as well. I'm going to make sure that in the description below to add a link for the Kahoot quiz so that our teachers can have access to that as well.
Yeah, great. That's a good idea. And I know a lot of teachers that are using Kahoot for a lot of different things, but I like this because it kind of connects that again back to that engagement strategy that we have. And again, you're sneaking in some of those assessment questions, so you get some of that background knowledge on your students. That's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, and just like any icebreaker, even in a traditional classroom setting, it's really designed to get our students used to participating, right? And that's one of the things, Mohammed, that I'm sure you have found also as we've moved all of our presentations to virtual. It's one thing to learn how to engage your audience in a live setting, but in a virtual setting, you really do have to use some of those different strategies. One of the things that I have found is that I really need to prompt my audience to engage in that participation right at the beginning, right? And so I might ask one of those questions like you're talking about. Instead of doing the storyboard, I might ask them, like you said, just a question of where did you go this summer? What interesting things did you do over the summer? And then I get them to participate that way right there in the chat box, right? That way they're using the tools that we have in that virtual environment.
And one of the things that teachers are going to find is that some kids are better at that participation than others.
Sure.
Okay. And like in a traditional classroom, we want to find ways to create equal access for all our students and really get them all engaged as quick as possible. So that gets me to think about how do I promote my kids and really prompt them rather to participate more easily and freely and more comfortably. One of the things that we need to know is that if we get our kids to share screens, and of course, as I start thinking about physical and emotional safety, getting them to have a backdrop on their either Zoom call or Teams, no matter which application you're using, I think that's a better way to go. But having them to keep their camera switched on means there's better engagement and they get to see their peers on screen. And then getting them to do some physical prompts really gets them engaged. Okay. So as an example, we could go back to the question you said, and what was your favorite food, or what was something that you ate over the summer? And then at the end of that question, I'll probably just say to my kids, as soon as you're done, put your hands on your shoulders, and then order them do this, right? Or as soon as you're done, put your finger on your chin, and then do that. I know it sounds silly, but it gets the kids engaged really, really quickly. As an example, Jason, I've got a question right here for you as well. So if we take a piece of paper, and I'm going to encourage everybody listening to this to try it as well. If you take a piece of paper 1/10 of an inch thick, and if you fold it over itself 50 times, how tall do you think that piece of paper is going to be? Now, as soon as you have your answer, I want you to put your hands on your head.
Okay, hang on. You already have the answer?
Of course I do.
And of course you would ask a math question, Mohammed, because I know you're a fantastic math educator. Okay. Yeah. The heck.
Good. So what Jason's showing us right now is that he has his answer, which is wonderful. Now you can understand the impact this is going to have. One, you've got two content specialists being silly on screen, but two, you can see the impact that this is going to have in your classroom with all of the students and their peers putting their hands in their heads, saying that they know the answer and they're ready to move on. Okay, a quick assessment point for you. So Jason, you've got your hands on your head. I'm going to take mine off because I look a bit silly. Could you tell us what was the answer?
Is it okay if I take mine off as well?
That's okay. Yeah, you can.
Great. Thanks. Yeah. Well, because I'm a math person, I think initially I was thinking, well, okay, so I just folded. Each time I folded, I add another 1/10 of an inch, right? So
Yep.
I was thinking, well, that would be 50 tenths, which is like 5 inches. But then I thought about it a little bit more, and really every time we're folding it, we're really like doubling it, right? What kind of sequence do you call that? I can't remember, but I know that it's going to be like almost infinitely tall by the time I get to 50, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's really
maybe
an
not
example of
infinitely,
geometric
like to the moon.
Yeah, you're right.
Geometric series.
That's
That's
it.
it.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's a really nice way to get kids engaged. Silly things like put your hands on your head. When they see that all up on screen, that prompts them to do the same. Okay, I'm going to encourage us to try that. And in the comments below, make sure to let us know how that goes for you. I'm sure it's going to go well.
Exactly. Yeah,
And the
I like
last
that
thing
one.
that I want to talk about, Jason, is one that I really love and one that I've used myself over and over and over in a traditional classroom. Now, we're always trying to link content to things that the kids are familiar with, right? So I'm always asking kids to think about what did it look like for you then? Or would you have something like that at home? How many times as a maths teacher did I get my kids to walk around the school to look for parallel lines, right? Or how many times could you find squares or rectangles, right? We always did that.
Hmm.
And then we always ask kids, can you think of your home? How many rectangles do you have? Can you walk around your bedroom? And that was always in your chair, close your eyes, imagine it. One of the big positives that we have here is that kids are in their homes right now. We can actually get them to get their bums off the seat, walk around their house, and look for things that you may need. Call it a virtual scavenger hunt if you'd like, right? Where students can walk around their house and find things that you need. Maybe you say to them, go find me 4 vegetables, and they run off to the kitchen and bring that back for you. There's a number of different ways that you can use that activity. So virtual scavenger hunts here is a really cool way to get your kids super engaged right at the beginning of any task.
Yeah, and that's nice too because you can connect that to any content area that you're teaching, right? You can see how you connect that to science, social studies, math, reading, and it's an icebreaker activity that you could do at the beginning almost of any virtual session you have with your students because again, they're not just sitting in front of their computer screen. It's that physical motion like you talked about with putting your hands on your head as well. You know, the students are up, they're moving around, and they're engaging in that topic right off the bat.
Fantastic. So we've covered four icebreakers here today, and I hope that's going to help those teachers in Mexico. And the first one is about creating those personal storyboards. Use the teacher using Kahoot quizzes more, and I'm going to make sure to add the link to that in the description. Prompting better participation from the kids with some physical gestures and movement, and don't be afraid to be silly. And the last one was physical movements. Trying to use those virtual scavenger hunts. I promise you, the kids will love them.
Yeah, I think those are four really great icebreakers to kind of get us started. And what I think would be really awesome, Mohammed, is if we could get some of the teachers that are watching this video, if you could comment below and share with us an icebreaker that maybe you've tried in your classroom and how you can take that virtual, or just if you have an idea of a virtual icebreaker that we could use, because it's really great when we share ideas like that among educators, and a lot of times that's where we come up with our good ideas, right? We see other people or hear other people doing those things.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Mohammed, thanks for joining us, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.